All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thursday, December 28th. We got an 8-game slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, we're going to go through each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my lean on the spread. I'll give you my lean on the total. We'll talk about any other plays I like in the game. But as always, all of my final plays, if you do want to fade me, those plays are in the pinned comment, and I update that throughout the day. Last night, it's not just me doing the video. We had ourselves a nice little sweep, so we bring our special guest, the Money Gun. Let's go. 3 and 0. Last night, a nice sweep. We go 3-1 on Christmas, followed up with a 3-0 night last night. The Bucks -4. We got that closing line value because it bumped up to 7.5 when all those guys are ruled out. Doesn't really matter. They would have covered. Thunder -2.5. I loved it. And then the Suns and Rockets over 2.5, over 225. That was an absolute no sweat. Pumping some damn crowd noise. And we hit 45,000 subscribers yesterday, guys. So you killed it. We killed it here with the picks. The ride of the day killed it. Coming in from Tadkins, Chet Holmgren, under 29.5 PRA. There's a few people that had this exact same ride of the day. Tadkins, from what I could see, was the first one, so he's getting the credit here. But guys, shout out to all of the picks in the comments. Shout out to the picks that we threw out there. Anything we touched yesterday kind of turned to gold, and I'll talk about that in just a second because we found some gold that we didn't even expect last night. But I'll talk about that in just a second. But if you guys do want to be the ride of the day, all you got to use is that hashtag ride of the day in the comments. Give me an absolute banger of a pick, just like Tadkins did here, and I'll be jumping on board with one person's pick, and you get a shout out in the next video, win or loss here. I'm also posting the ride of the day on my X, so go follow me there at EvGuyBoston. And speaking of that, that's what I wanted to talk about. Before we get into the picks, guys, and we'll talk more about DGF during the video, but check this out. The news, the good news, I should say, does not stop at what we're talking about here. We hit a 6-for-6 slip last night over on Prize Picks, an NHL slip that I just followed the optimizer, which I'm happy to tell you about later on in the video, but we just followed the Daily Grind Fantasy Optimizer. 6-for-6, 20 bucks turned into 500. Yesterday was the night. Yesterday was the night. Anything we touched turned to gold yesterday. Will we always have those nights? Hell no, but we got to appreciate it when we do. If you guys do want to check out Daily Grind Fantasy, head over to the link in the pinned comment and use the code GuyBoston. You got to use the code to get 25% off, but we'll talk about them later on in the video. I just had to show the little morning surprise. I literally forgot we made that 6-man slip and then cha-ching. But let's go ahead and jump into today's video, guys. We have the Celtics taking on the Pistons. And this is a weird one for me. We got a bunch of injuries. Tatum and Brown both questionable. And for whatever reason, I get a weird feeling about this game. And 17 points is nothing I would touch with a 10-foot pole anyway, so we don't bet this spread tonight, I don't think. But I really wouldn't even with Tatum and Brown healthy, I don't think that I would want to lean towards the Celtics because that spread is so large. And like the minute I lean towards that, the freaking Pistons losing streak probably comes to an end because after a sweeping night, I probably jinxed them here. So I'm sticking away from this spread. Obviously, if you guys want to play it at your own risk because that number is absolutely massive. The Celtics may be without their two of their best 4 or 3 players. So keep that in mind. But a pick that we could look at is the under 231.5, just because I don't necessarily know where the offense totally comes from if Jalen, if Tatum aren't playing. Now, the Celtics have been cashing overs like you read about, so I can give them that, but this could be a spot where they go in there and put up 127 themselves, right? And it's like, okay, well, the Pistons just need to get to like 105, and we're looking at a good spot. But again, I don't know if the Celtics get to that level if Tatum and Brown are not playing. So this is one where we definitely want to wait out the injury report and see what those guys are doing. But yeah, I'm not touching that spread today. Usually we have a lean either way, but the Pistons are so bad that I honestly can't even rely on them plus 17, right? And the Celtics, these injuries, can't confidently back them right now. They're playing super well. Like I understand that. They're playing phenomenal, but without Tatum, without Brown, a little bit sketchy. So keep an eye on the pinned comment, but I don't know if anything really comes to fruition in this game. All right, next up here, we have Minnesota taking on Dallas. Dallas is on the second night of a back-to-back. They slipped. That game slipped through their hands last night, and the Cavs end up taking the win 113-110. Minnesota, coming off of a couple days rest, had a bad loss to OKC last time out. Karl-Anthony Towns is on the injury report. We'll see if he ends up getting the run today, because I think that will impact my pick. Right now, if Karl-Anthony Towns does not play, I don't mind Dallas plus the points. They're 8-4 this year after a loss. Playing, I guess you could say, decent basketball after a loss there. Back-to-back, I don't know if I love 7-5 against the spread after a loss. Well, back-to-back, I don't know if I love that spot for them. I can admit that, but no Towns, I think, is going to be a huge knock to this team, just in a sense of what we're going to be dealing with. Last time these two teams played back in mid-December here, so 2 weeks ago, Karl-Anthony Towns was really the only one that stepped up and scored against this Dallas team other than Naz Reid. So Anthony Edwards had 9 points. Gobert had 8. Mike Conley had 14. McDaniels had 11 in terms of their starters, right? Towns dropped in 21 and 17 from a rebound perspective. So if Towns doesn't play, I think it's a huge knock to what the advantage over this Mavs team is on the Timberwolves side. So keep an eye on the injury report. You can get this at plus 10 on many sportsbooks. I know my graphic says 9, but this thing is moving up, meaning I think a lot of people are taking that Timberwolves number, and sportsbooks don't like it, so kind of hurts our point, right? Like if sportsbooks aren't comfortable given I guess the 9 and it moves up to 10, maybe they think Minnesota wrecks them. But I think 10 points may be a little bit too much to give here against a Dallas team who's also 4-2 against the spread on back-to-backs this year as well. So does it make its way into the final plays? Maybe without Towns and this line staying at 10, I think it has a chance. But I also would say, in honesty, like, there's a reason why this line is at double digits, clearly. You know what I mean? Like, Vegas is not afraid to lay that number. So we shall see, guys. In terms of a total, 228.5. Like I said, these lines have moved. This is up to 229 consensus on most sports books. I don't mind the under here. I think this finishes in the early 220s. Last time they played 119-101. Even if Dallas makes a game of this, I do think because they're on a back-to-back, so on and so forth, I do think that we're looking at a game in which Dallas, unlike them, is going to have to grind this one out in a sense, and sort of keep up with the defensive end of the ball rather than trying to go ballistic and score, especially without Kyrie and some of the injuries that they've had to deal with. This is all intents and purposes, one-man show now. That one-man show is filthy, right? Like, Luka Doncic is crazy good, but it's not going to be leading to these amazing amounts of overs like we were seeing from the Mavs at the beginning of the year, if that makes sense. Like, though they're still keeping up that pace, I don't necessarily think that their efficiency is there. On the season now, or actually in terms of last 5, that's probably a better way to put it, they're attempting the 4th most points, 4th most shots in the entire league on the offensive end, right? 4th most field goal attempts. The 3rd worst field goal percentage. Talk about an inefficiency there, right? So if this game, regardless of who wins, who loses, the under may be my play in this game altogether. Keep an eye on that pinned comment, obviously. Next up, we have the Pels taking on the Jazz. Pelicans coming in at a spread that I'm not going to lie, I was kind of like, interesting. -8, -8.5 on Bet365 right now. Maybe it's moving in that direction, but still -8 on most books. And I'm looking at that like, I thought that they'd be just a tad lower of a spread. Last time they played twice in 3 nights. The Pelicans came in at 4-point favorites and 6.5-point favorites. Now they're at 8, which I guess makes a little bit of sense talent-wise, but this Pelicans team has lost 3 of their last 4, not covered in 3 of the last 4, and Utah's out here, winning 4 of their last 5 games. They've won 3 straight games, covered in those as well. So it's like, what's going on here? But then you look into the teams that Utah has beat. San Antonio last game, right? Then 2 games before that, they beat Detroit. It's like, okay, I see what's happening. These wins from Utah seem like they might have a little air in them. Like, they're not quality wins, in my opinion, and they're on the road. If you guys don't know, Utah's one of the worst road teams this season, both straight up and against the spread. So I look at this and I say, okay, there's a reason why this, like I said, I was surprised by that number, but there's a reason why I was surprised by that number, and I'm going to agree with the books here. I think that this is a good spot for the Pelicans. No real injuries that we're looking at overall, so I do think that this is a good spot for them. I'll take the Pelicans here minus the 8 points. The total sitting at 238. Don't have much of a feel for this. I would say New Orleans, a slower team, obviously, than Utah, but we've seen Utah even the Pistons scored 110 against them. Then Toronto Raptors scored 119 against them, and then San Antonio dropped 118. So does New Orleans' offense get a little of a bump because they're playing this, I guess, bad Utah defense? It could, but 238.5 is a little bit too high for me. I've seen 240 on 365 too. So this is moving up and up and up, and I don't like it. Like, I really don't think that this is any spot where I'm going to be looking at an over altogether. I do think that there could be some player prop action in this game that I could see being, you know, a good spot. Like Colin Sexton here of Utah. I don't mind his spots in terms of maybe points and assists. He's hit that in 4 of his last 5. This Pelicans team, yes, they're a good defensive team, but I don't really hate it. You know, he hit that, I think, not the last game, but the game prior he did hit his over in points plus assists because he played more minutes. So when he gets his minutes, I do think that this is a spot in which he could kind of do that. So keep an eye on the pin comment. We could have something there. He's getting the start now at the 2 guard too, you know what I mean? So point guard, shooting guard, wherever you want to put him at. The Pelicans don't cover it all that well. I would say if you look at their defense first position, they cover the point guard super well. Not super well, but well. They cover the shooting guard really poorly. So depending on where you slot him in, right? He's a shooting guard here, slight point guard by trade on past teams, but if I wanted to make this, like, tie it up nice in a bow, I'd tell you that against shooting guards, the Pelicans are terrible, but we know that he's going to handle the ball a lot too, so kind of want to make that fair, but I don't mind his spot here whatsoever. Guy's shooting plenty as of late. Well, like as of late, I think in the last few games here, last 5 games, let me see, I have it up in front of me, averaging 15 attempts per game. Like, points plus assists could be a spot for Colin Sexton. All right, guys, I already talked about Daily Grind Fantasy at the beginning of the video because I showed you that slip, but seriously, if you're on Prize Picks and not using this tool, you are missing out. It's so worth testing out, even if it's just for a month. I know you'll stick around longer than that, but if you go to the link in the pinned comment and use code GUYBOSTON, GUYBOSTON, you'll get 25% off your first month. It's a deal you cannot beat, and I'm telling you, this tool is at least worth checking out for a month. You got to use that code, though, GUYBOSTON. That is how you trigger the discount here, 25% off. But look at this thing. This is how we built that 6 for 6 slip last night. Seriously, just look at this and okay, well, you look at the Prize Picks lines for all of these players, and then what the Daily Grind Optimizer does is compare it to sportsbooks lines out there. Prize Picks doesn't care about odds. Why should we over on Prize Picks, right? So why wouldn't you throw in the mega juiced plays, -135, -145, -142 over into your Prize Picks slips? When you think about it, these juiced plays, sportsbooks have been around for a long time for a reason, right? They know what they're doing with their odds. They have more resources to allocate towards these lines than Prize Picks does. So why wouldn't you throw these mega juiced plays into your Prize Picks slips? They also have a great % odds to hit tool, or column here, which is just amazing. And sometimes you also find different lines, like Prize Picks will have a line of 2.5, and the sportsbooks will have a line of 1.5, so you know that you're getting a softer or firmer line over on Prize Picks. Guys, this tool is amazing. You want to go mega and pay the big bucks, you can use the correlation tool, which this thing is absolutely incredible and crazy. Crazy is the word we just made up. You pretty much takes into account the game script, and if a quarterback's gonna go over his passing yards line, well, then you're probably gonna see a few of his receivers also go over their lines because it's correlated, right? And what you don't know is that sportsbooks are actually bumping those odds, or I guess nerfing the odds when you put correlated slips together on your normal sportsbooks. Prize Picks doesn't do that. So if you actually look at the payouts and whatnot, Prize Picks beats these correlated tools, so these correlated slips. So guys, go check out Daily Grind. Again, that link's in the pinned comment. Make sure you use code GUYBOSTON. You get 25% off your first month. It's a no-brainer. I don't push anything I don't use on this channel myself, right? And look at that thing we showed you at the beginning of the video here. A 6 for 6 NHL correlated slip. I'm not making NHL videos every day, right? This isn't the biggest NHL brain. They make it super, super easy, guys. You gotta go check it out. But let's go ahead and get back to the slate. Again, use that code GUYBOSTON, link in the pinned comment. All right, next up, we got Chicago taking on the Pacers. Right now, Chicago slightly favored, or slightly underdogs at home here. They've been playing some good basketball. We know that, right? They're like turning their season around. Honestly, since Zach LaVine has been out. But nonetheless, they've won 4 of their last 5. Got smoked by Cleveland. That was their only loss. Whatever, consider it like a scheduled loss then, right? But they've covered in 8 of their last 10 games. 8-2 against the spread in their last 10. Indiana, on the opposite end, they're 3-7 straight up in their last 10. They're 3-7 against the spread, and this team that's cashing over, just 4-6 to the over in their last 10. So they're not really on the right trajectory. That being said, Chicago loses Vucevic. I think that could be a pretty big hit because my main leans are actually going to be looking at Miles Turner in this game. I like him over in threes, and I also like his over in points today in this spot. I think that Andre Drummond getting the start at center, come on, maybe he'll out-rebound Turner, but he ain't going out to the three-point line, right? And right now, over 1.5 threes for Miles Turner is plus 125. So do we pull the trigger on it? We shall see, right? Like, it is still a risky bet, but his last 4 games here, 7 attempts, 6 attempts, 4 attempts, 8 attempts. So he's not making a lot here. He's not shooting that well, but we only need 2 from him. If he shoots a bunch, then I don't mind that spot. So, and I also like him from a points perspective. He's hit this in 3 of his last 4 against the Bulls here. Those attempts were also against the Bulls, by the way. If we look at it from a last 5 perspective for his 3-point attempts here, he's shooting 4, 4, 3, 4, 2. So it's like, okay, yes, a little bit less there, but he has hit this in 2 straight games. But again, points or 3-point made, maybe both. I really don't mind a Miles Turner night tonight because this is not a center that I'm worried about on the defensive end. In terms of a spread pick, I know I just ragged on Indiana. I know I just pumped up the Bulls and how well they're playing, but I think this could be a spot for Indiana to kind of get out of the dumps here. The Bulls, what they've been doing is nice. I get it. It's awesome. They kind of turned the season around, but does Indiana have that revenge mindset? They lost to the Bulls way back in, October 30th. It might even been one of their first games of the year, if not the. And it's like, okay, well, that was when the Bulls are bad. Indiana had a run where they looked pretty good, right? So do they go out there and say, okay, you know what? Let's get some revenge? Maybe. I don't know if you want to put that narrative on there, but I like Indiana in this spot. The thing that's going to need to convince me is just like, do I believe Indiana's going to play like they did at the beginning of the year? Because right now you have a team that essentially these 2 teams like switched places, right? Neither one of them, I believe, are that good, but Chicago's playing really well. Indiana's not, and it's like, that's the opposite of what we saw at the beginning of the year. So keep an eye on the pinned comment to see if we have the cojones to pull the trigger on Indiana here on the road. They haven't been that great on the road. In terms of a total, sitting at 240.5, maybe a little bit too high. Again, Indiana cashing unders like you read about as of late. The fact that they've hit more unders than overs in the last 10, yet they're still 20-9 to the overs this year is kind of crazy. So I'll lean towards the under again, especially if I think it's a Miles Turner offensive night. Like, that's not the fast guy on the team, right? So I'll lean in that direction. All right, Nuggets taking on Memphis. Nuggets sitting at home as 7-point favorites. Memphis yet to catch an L since Ja Morant came back. They've also covered in every single game, whether they were favorited or whether they were underdogs. But I think Memphis is better than any team they've played. They've played New Orleans twice, Indiana, and Atlanta. So it's nice. It's great that Ja Morant has a couple game winners already and blah, blah, blah. Exciting player, right? I don't know if I love the fact that they were like, don't do anything more with guns, and his first, celebration chances, he goes off with guns. Like, that was kind of crazy. I don't think I'm on the Chandler Parsons, like, you're an idiot side, but that was kind of like, oh boy, this guy might not get it. But that's neither here nor there in terms of this game. He is questionable in this spot, dealing with an illness, so we'll see if he plays. If he doesn't play, obviously, I think we like Denver even more. But yeah, I just think Denver is the best team that they've played so far in this little run of, oh my God, they haven't lost since Ja Morant came back. Like, they're not going to win out for the rest of the year, right? They got to lose at some point, and Denver's one of those teams that could easily beat them based on the matchup and based on just how good they are. So I'll go ahead and lean towards Denver here, minus the points. In terms of a total, I was surprised it was this low, but then you look at what Denver's been doing recently. They're kind of like low-scoring game, high-scoring game, low-scoring game, high-scoring game. They had a relatively high-scoring game Christmas Day against Golden State, 120-117, right? By the way, we cashed that. Warriors +7. But I will say that 225 just like jumps out at me like seems a little bit too low. Based on how, the explosive, I guess you could say, the offense has become for Memphis. Remember how bad they were at the beginning of the year? Well, points for-wise, since Ja's coming back, 115, 116, 125, 116. They do something like that. That's more than enough to cash this over. So I'll give Memphis that credit, that's their offense, okay? So I'm going to lean towards the over in this spot, thinking that, if I like Memphis to score 115, but I also like, the Nuggets -7, that game script reads like it's going to at least possibly get into the 230s with a few other buckets here and there, right? And a player prop I really don't hate in this spot, and it's kind of weird because this guy is not a passer, but Desmond Bane over 4.5 assists here. He's averaged in his last 10 games 9.5 potential assists. Even with Ja back here, he's averaging over 8 potential assists. So I like this spot for him. This isn't necessarily, you know, an anti-assist type team for the Nuggets either, right? It's like okay, well, it's yes, they're a good defensive team in many ways you want to break it down, but in terms of assists, like they're not stopping small forward assists whatsoever. They're kind of ranked middle of the pack in terms of assists allowed. So yeah, I think I like him to get 5 assists today. The odds are nice on it, -120. He's hit it in 7 of his last 10. He's hit it in 64% of games this season. He's yet to do it against Denver in his last 6 games, dating back to 2021. But he has a little bit more of a role here and more usage on this team now. If Ja Morant doesn't play, I really don't mind it at all either. In games that he has not played with Ja Morant, who is a game-time decision here, he's hit this in 63% of those games this year, 15 of 24. So, yeah, Desmond Bane might be a good look for assists tonight. I know that's not what he normally does. That's not his usual stat, but I don't hate it. All right, Spurs traveling to Portland in this one. Portland kind of pulling off a win in which, not to say shocked the world, but shocked a damn lot of people there. They beat Sacramento 130 to 113. And this is obviously not a very good Portland team. They're 8-21 this year, but they're against the spread. They're almost 500, 14-15 against the spread, going up against a Spurs team that we know is pretty abysmal here. 4-25 straight up, 11-18 against the spread. Victor Wembanyama is on the injury report. No Ayton and no Sharp today for Portland there. And that makes me immediately, you know, in terms of this game, fine. I'll lean towards Portland. I think they're the better team. Does that make it its way to the final plays? Probably not, because it's Portland, so I don't really love that. In terms of a total, maybe slightly lean towards the over because I think a lack of defense is going to be in this game, but my favorite spot in this game is going to be targeting Anthony Simons. Now, it's going to be really crucial what we look at here in terms of just overall plays, because his number has gone from, you know, I guess you'd say in the last 10 games, gone from him coming back to 23.5 to 24.5 to 25.5. It's all the way up at 27.5 for his points. But one thing you could consider is looking at his over 4.5 3-pointers made. I know, crazy number, right? But it's plus 120 odds right now over on DK. Plus 120 for a guy that is shooting 14, 13, and 12. Those are his last 3-point attempt numbers. So he's shooting a bunch of those. Now, even still, he'd have to shoot like 40%, 45% to cash this. I get it, but we're talking a plus money play here. So let's make sure we're putting that into perspective, right? And the Spurs allowing the most threes to opposing players this year. They're allowing the 3rd most threes to the point guard position over the last 7 games. They're allowing the most points to the point guard position over the last 7 games. Just could be a good spot for him, but you really got to be precise about what number you're taking with him, because I'll admit his numbers have been damn inflated as of late, because it's like, who else is shooting on that team, right? Like credit to him for shooting. I'm not taking that away from him, but he's shooting over 20 times a game. Crazy. So just make sure you're getting the right line. Like 27.5, I like his points line, but that just seems a little bit too high. If you look at 24.5, which is what it was 10 games ago, you're paying -200. So that's how much he has risen here. But nonetheless, I don't mind his matchup. I just want to make sure we get the best line or best spot for him. I think it might be 3s for the plus money versus his obviously his points line there. So you can also even look at his over 3.5 threes for odds, right? Like it's tough to bet him, but he truly is the best matchup, I think, in this spot. All right, Warriors taking on the Heat. I like this spot for the Warriors. I know that's crazy. If you disagree with this pick, that's fine, because I could totally see an argument being made for the Heat here. I really could. In terms of injuries, Jimmy Butler's questionable. If he plays, that's obviously going to be a pretty big upgrade. Kyle Lowry's also questionable, as well as Duncan Robinson. So those guys playing, you can make the case that obviously that's going to be a good bump for them. But Golden State, I did like what I saw on Christmas. Maybe I'm biased because they cashed for us, but prior to that game, they had won 5 straight games. And then they lose on Christmas, but they do cover their number. Miami has won 3 straight games, and I'll give them credit, but you know, it's like they grinded out that win against Orlando. Credit to them, they got the win. They beat Atlanta. I'm not impressed by that, really, and they beat the Sixers without Embiid. So it's like I really want to see Miami prove themselves in like a statement esque game. If Embiid played on Christmas, that could have been an opportunity. But right now, I do think Golden State at the house could be a good spot here. Golden State not playing all that well on the road, 6-8 this year, 9-6 at home. And if they get hot from three, I don't think that Miami really has the shooters to compete with it. Oh, but Tyler Hero's a good shooter. Duncan Robinson, those are not the shooters that, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. If those guys are dropping in 5+ threes each type of thing, Miami, I think, that score goes from, close game to 3. And then all of a sudden there's this lead that I think that compounds. So yeah, I like the Warriors, and I also don't mind the over in this spot either. We've seen, Miami's defense play well as of late, but their competition has been really poor in their last 10. Just to say a few games that they've had in their last 10, they played Charlotte twice, they played Chicago twice. Yeah, but Ev, you just said Chicago's playing well. Just for the sake of argument here, Chicago's offense isn't a 140 type offense, right? So Charlotte twice, Chicago twice, then Minnesota, who is a defensive team, Orlando defensive team, Atlanta, fine, they put up, a decent, they played Atlanta well, but then Philly without Embiid. Like, they haven't been tested with an offense like Golden State's here, whereas Golden State in their last few games here, 132, 129, 126, and then 114. Like, they are scoring a decent amount of points as of late. So I'll take the over in this spot. I also really have a play that I think makes its way into the final play. Steph Curry over 9.5 rebounds plus assists. This is a plus 104 play right now, plus 100 on DraftKings, plus 100 BetMGM, but plus 104 over on FanDuel. Steph Curry has hit this in 3 straight games against Miami, and what I really like is that he's struggled to get his points line or 3-point made line against Miami, so I think that they put, obviously, a lot of pressure on him, right? But then you look at his PRA line, he's actually cashed that a couple times. Then you look at his points and assists line, he's actually cashed that. Then you look at his points and rebounds line, he actually cashed that. So I'm like, where is this coming from? If he hasn't been scoring against Miami, where the hell's this been coming from? Well, then, duh, you look at his rebounds plus assists, and he's hit it in 3 straight games against Miami. So I don't mind this spot from him. He's averaging, 8 potential assists per game over his last 5 here. So, we're looking at maybe 4 there. And then from a rebound perspective, he's averaging 6 rebound chances. So I think he has a floor of 7 to 8 rebounds plus assists tonight. And if Miami obviously doesn't cover that well against him, and he's cashed that before, or he's passing a lot more because he's double teamed and whatnot, I think there could be some upside here. So I think his floor is pretty good. His floor is not good enough to cash us, but that's because it's a plus money play, right? So keep an eye on the pinned comments. Steph Curry over 9.5 rebounds plus assist could be a good spot. His assist line's 4.5. I really don't hate that. And his rebound line is 4.5 as well for plus money. I also don't hate that. So I like them separately. I like them together. Probably my favorite spots in this game. Next up, we got the Lakers taking on Charlotte. This game isn't really worth considering from a spread perspective because the Lakers I don't fully trust, but Charlotte, you're not putting your money on them, right? So you have the Lakers sitting at 13-point favorites, a little bit too high for me. The total at 228, I don't mind taking the over there, but I think the best value in this game is going to be looking at Anthony Davis. He's been crushing it, and honestly, you can pick any stat, for Christ's sakes, you can pick any stat against Charlotte, and centers are going to have their way against them. So maybe a points and rebounds line, a little inflated to 42. Points and assists, I don't mind. You can even look at his points at 28.5. He's hit that plenty. He had 32 last time they played, which was a while back. But yeah, I think that, there's no real stat that Charlotte is strong against in terms of centers. So don't mind taking a peek at Anthony Davis in this spot here. In terms of injuries in the game here, obviously, everybody in the Lakers are normally, the questionable guys. So Anthony Davis, as well as LeBron James, knee and ankle. I wonder what they're up to at night. But I'm sure they will end up playing. But Gordon Hayward's out. Brandon Miller's questionable. Mike Williams still out. It's like this Charlotte team is charlotting. Okay, so I'll take the Lakers, I guess, but I don't really love the spread. My main lean, like I said, is going to be taking a peek at some AD player props. But guys, if you made it this far into the video, go ahead and comment 28. Long video today, but we had a lot to talk about. Like, what a night last night, hitting 45K as well, and going 6 for 6, $20 into $500. Like, come on now. Yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys do think we should go live today. We have a little bit of time from like 4 to 5:30 maybe that we could go live. We didn't go live yesterday, but I love those live stream, man. We had 400 people concurrently 2 days ago when we did the live stream. Like, that is awesome. Thank you guys so damn much. But without further ado, guys, that's all I have for you. We'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.